Live on Facebook?
Testing. Testing.
Now, Marie?
We are live?
With no sound? Is that
No sound. No, shoot. It says, did I say shoot again? Dang it. I always say shoot and dang it. Dang it, I said shoot. Dang it. Just kidding.
Hey, is it just me or does that light go on and off over there?
The one behind you will flicker. Okay, now I'm just setting up for the show. Who's going on this laptop?
Nobody.
No one.
Who are you?
Oh, shoot. Dang it, I said shoot again. I always do that. All right, Cyril, you're up.
So I'm on.
Oh, okay.
When you say I'm
Hey,
on.
guys, we're going to have a great guest today.
Yes.
Her name is going to be Layla Miller.
Her name is gonna be.
Let's just read this book. Just a little teaser for everyone. Okay? And, all right. Sanger's movement grew more popular throughout the decades and during the sexual revolution of the 1960s. Okay. Fun with Polaroid cameras. Explain to your children, or explain to your children. You can either explain it or you could explain it
Got it?
to your children that Polaroid cameras, which are popular again, provide nearly... What was that? Dang it. So today on the show, we'll be learning about modesty, what the church teaches.
Pronounced Modesty.
We'll also be learning about modesty, Edvice for big kids, los niños grandes. A veces cuando estoy hablando en español no puedo pensar en inglés porque estoy hablando en español. ¿Me entiendes? Lo siento, pero ¿por qué el gringo está hablando en español? No sé. Lo siento. Sai would be host or microphone 2. Oh yeah.
Test, test.
Who was that?
I don't hear it.
Oh, thank you, Andrew.
Test. Yeah, okay, I'm on now.
Say it again. Hi and welcome.
I'm going to take an interview of you while you're...
Hola,
Okay.
chiquita.
Okay.
¿Qué pasa?
These headphones are huge. We are not actually live, no.
Here.
We are testing. No, we are testing our microphones
No.
right now.
So, okay.
We're live.
You're so live right now.
So, Nick, how's your first day of fame?
It is going very well.
Nobody could hear her
I
question,
miss-
though. Marie, assistant producer Marie, just asked Nick, how was your
my
first day of fame?
And I was trying to say modesty, but I said modesty, and it was quite embarrassing.
Do you
That's
often
how.
have speech... Do you,
Oh.
do you often stutter when you speak, or
I do.
is that just today?
When I hear myself speak, I have a
Shoot.
little bit of a lisp, and I don't like that.
Dang it.
No,
And
that's-
so I'm
that's
working
no
on it.
problem, but I do like how you misspeak modesty.
Oh yeah, that's okay. My wife is a speech language pathologist.
Does she speak
And she
Spanish
said,
as well?
let
or
me
just
see
English?
how you swallow. And I was like, what? Are you kidding? And so when I do, my tongue goes out my front teeth a little bit. And so that's incorrect. I hope that's
you do
very,
not-
that's very personal
You're
for
not,
everyone to hear.
You're not satisfied with the way that you speak? You don't
no,
like it?
no. I need to work on it. Okay, what else?
Just tidying up.
We will also be learning about transgender identity today for everyone. Oh gosh, did I say something bad?
This is the wrong book.
Understanding transgender ideology. Okay,
Hey, Nick, what
So-
can you tell us about how our conference went from an audio-visual standpoint?
standpoint and perspective. It
Shoot.
went very well. Dang it.
Don't say shoot or dang it. Come
no,
on.
I only did that because Andrew was chiming in there. Everything went very well. Occasionally, Sai wouldn't hear what was going on, and he would get a little flustered, and he was scared and nervous. He almost started crying during the radio show,
No, I did actually. I cried.
and I had to
Very
get up
much.
there and dang it, Andrew. Shoot, just kidding.
Dang it, Andrew, shoot.
This isn't Andrew. It's
But-
the man in the can.
I do believe we reached many people.
I actually think Sai told some of his best jokes ever.
Can you tell the joke about the vineyard that's being planted over a grave? It was a good one.
No. Because Father Ehrman was talking about in Oakland, they have they
Oh,
planted
the
a
grave
vineyard
site.
over the graves.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That was a good joke.
It seemed less than appetizing to me.
Yeah. Don't
Let's
drink
just
the
say
wine.
I love
Don't drink the communion wine at that parish.
you're really involved with the mystical body there. All right. Good work, everyone. Should I turn
So
this
do you
camera on?
believe that they put you on the air now or no?
I don't think I'm on the air.
But look, that's you on the air.
I don't think I said anything appropriate today.
No, you didn't say anything inappropriate today.
No, nothing was appropriate.
You said shoot way too many times.
I know.
Shoot.
I thought,
Nick can't get through 30 seconds of talking without saying shoot or dang it.
Yeah.
I think it's because I'm from Texas. Just kidding.
I feel so tired from the conference. Don't leave me in here alone, Nick.
I'm not. I'm just
Oh,
tidying
okay.
up.
Just drink your Diet Coke.
I'm
Okay.
I know.
Conference hangover is real.
I feel, like I'm hitting a wall or something. And it started at about 2 o'clock, which was
Nick,
about
we all know
an
you're
hour
not
ago.
reading.
Remember, teens can understand. Oh, I'm not going to read that. That's not. All right. Good work, guys.
We still have the paperwork from this
I gotta
morning.
get lit
You can
on-
give me all that paperwork from this morning's show
All right. Turn me down.
on Radio Maria. That other one, too, if you want. You don't? Okay, never mind. I got it. This is the wrong one.
She's on Skype.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
yes. Can you hear us?
I'm like going the wrong direction.
Here, you might want to take them all out of the mix now.
All right. Layla, can you? Oh, that's me.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Killett, your host. That's our brand new theme music. Just tested it out on Friday at our Great Big Giant Faith and Science Conference that went, I thought, extremely well. And the feedback I've been getting, except from Andrew, the video guy, everybody else has said the conference went extremely well. So I don't know if there was some problem with the video. I don't know what it was, but thanks to everybody who came. About maybe 900 or more of our very best friends. Cardinal Burke came, Dr. Stacy Drasenkos, who I have met many times via video conference, but I have never met in person. I got to meet her. Father Terrence Herman, who I've also met via video. I got to meet him in person. It's weird. It's weird in this modern world that you can meet people a good many times before you actually ever are in their presence. And they both did wonderful with they did a wonderful job with their talks on faith and science. Stacy took the view of a scientist who discovered God after being fully versed in science, after her PhD and after her studies in photosynthesis, and Father Ehrman took a interesting kind of literary view of the relationship between faith and science, and he gave us a wonderful kind of interpretive talk about the New Atheist, but then he talked about Flannery O'Connor's great book, Wise Blood, and her fascinating character, Hazel Motes. So that was all just great. It was just a wonderful time, and it's exhausting and exciting, and I just don't know how to describe it. It was the best conference we have ever put on. Erica Olson did a great job organizing it. She's here next to me in the studio, so that's part of why I'm saying that. But she also did a great job organizing it, and we're so grateful to everybody who came. And I hope you'll come to next year's conference. There's something special going on with these conferences year after year. I must say, in a time when I think it's easy to feel a little down as a Catholic, you know the reasons. I won't rehearse the reasons for you, but in a time when it definitely is, it may be even tempting to feel a bit down, to be around about 1,000 people who are fully embracing the faith and excited about the faith and ready to learn and ready to go forth and share the good news. It really picks you up. So I feel pretty picked up by that. Erica, do you feel picked up by that? She says absolutely. She feels picked up by that. So on to our show for today. Today we're going to talk about the book Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. So if maybe you have a kid or you are a kid and you want some help with the toughest moral issues of the day, today is your day to call. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Our guest is the author of that book, Layla Miller. Layla is the author of Primal Loss, the now adult children of divorce speak, and also Raising Chaste Catholic Men. She blogs at Little Catholic Bubble, and she and her husband live in Phoenix, Arizona. And as I said, she is I say she's the author. I do not believe that Trent Horn contributed anything to this. That's my suspicion anyways. But both of their names are on it. Layla Miller and Trent Horn. Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. Layla Miller, thanks for being with us.
Hi, Cy. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Did Trent contribute at all to this, or was this?
Not at all, but he just needed another book on his.
That's what I
notch on
thought
his
might
belt,
have happened.
I know.
I finally
let
got
him
to
put
the
it on.
truth. Yeah.
Yes. Don't say anything.
So what gave you the idea that I'm going to pretend for the rest of the show that it's a two-person job. So
Okay.
what gave the two of you the idea that a book for adults on how to talk to kids about tough moral issues what we need?
I'm going to call it providence that both of us kind of independently of each other had thought that this is a void that's out there. We don't have anything right now that helps parents who are very freaked out at the moment. Catholic parents are nervous, they're anxious. We understand why. The world's kind of going crazy. So I have always taken one approach with kids and raising my 8 kids that seems to have stuck. And it's more of I didn't even know the name of natural law. I didn't know that was a thing, but I'd always taught the faith kind of based on reason or, as we say now, what is the nature of a thing and how are we supposed to be fully human? Like, how did God design us? And so actually, Trent and I, believe it or not, we've known each other for many, many years when he was in Phoenix, even as a youngster, and not too young, but I'm kind of old, so he's young to me. But so I knew him before he even worked for Catholic Answers, and so we kind of kept in touch over the years, and then we accidentally, providentially saw each other at the studio here in Phoenix when he was back here for a while, and I had told him about thoughts that I had about writing something to help parents with how to deal with these really difficult issues coming up now, and he had also had the same type of idea that something like that was needed. So we got together at a little coffee shop one day and thought this is something we could do together. He's so strong on the research, and I'm a little stronger on the having 27 years of parenting behind me, and it was just a really good a really good idea, we thought, and we did it, and it worked out well. So
It certainly did work out well, and we're all the better for it. I'm very happy to be confirmed in my idea that you had the idea, and then Trent said, "Oh, I had the same idea. I get it
Yeah,
now,
you
how
got
this
it.
all came
Yeah.
together." Of the tough moral issues that you cover here in the book, and by the way, if you'd like to talk with Layla Miller about these tough moral issues, and if you'd like to talk with her about how to talk with kids about these tough moral issues, give us a call, 888-318-7884. If you prefer the spelled version, it's 888-31-TRUTH, 888-31-TRUTH. Are there any among these moral issues, Layla, that are particularly close to your heart, or you really wanted to do a good job on that one?
well, coming off the last book that I did, which was Primal Loss, The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak, I did want to include a section on divorce because it's something we don't usually talk about, but that is one of the misuses of human sexuality. It's part of how God made us, and marriage is obviously, he made it to be a permanent state. So I figured we had to touch on that, and I wanted to do that chapter particularly well because of the people in my book, the 70 who had contributed to the Primal Loss book. And I just love those folks, and I've talked to so many people since then who also are children of divorce, and I wanted to make sure I did right by them. So that was a tricky one, but it was necessary.
Well, let's take that one. So, Chapter 5, divorce, and then you'll give an overview, but you also do several pages on, okay, how are you going to talk to little kids about divorce? And then you'll do several pages on how to talk to the bigger kids on divorce. Maybe we can use this one as an example about what's the difference in how you might talk about divorce with the little ones and the bigger ones.
Right. So each section, that's kind of the way that it's set up, is there are 3 chapters in each section, and the first is what the church teaches. Then the next section is how to talk to little kids about that particular issue, and then how to talk to big kids. So a lot of what we do, whether it's divorce or any other of the sexual subjects, comes from the directive that the church gave it was in 1995, it's called The Truth and Meaning of Human Sexuality. And it's a document that most parents don't know exists, and they really need to download it like today and print it out. But it talks about the latency period and just certain things you don't want to introduce too early to children. Now, unfortunately, on all these issues, we're kind of way past hoping that these kids aren't going to have to hear about some of these sexual issues because the culture doesn't back up parents anymore. It doesn't have the same morality it did universally in decades past. So now we're kind of on our own, but still we have to try to respect that latency period, which is what JP2 called it, but it's the age of innocence, kind of between the ages of 5 and puberty. So if you're talking about something like divorce, I mean, they're not shielded from that. Even when they're little, they know all their little friends, about half of their friends probably are from houses of, broken homes, and the parents are not together anymore. So it might be their grandparents. It might be an older sibling that's married and divorced already. It might be, their own household. But you have to speak with them first about the fact that we love the people who might have not done or followed what God has wanted for marriage. So they might say, for example, why isn't Grandma and Grandpa married anymore? They don't live in the same house. And, so we have sample dialogues, for example, which is, you say that it's very, very sad that they don't live together like they used to. Sometimes grown-ups get divorced because they feel like they'll be happier if they don't have their family together anymore, if they live in different houses. And that's very, very sad. And we are going to pray for Grandma and Grandpa because, it makes everybody sad that now the family is not together anymore. And so you kind of lead them to prayer, and you make them understand that even if other people aren't necessarily living the faith as we are taught or as we do in our household, we still love them, and we pray for them. But we're very bold about it too. We don't. The one mistake people make is that I want to say that we don't have our confidence as parents in the teachings of the church to begin with.
Right.
And so we equivocate, or we try to, we like to say sometimes that we're being compassionate by not speaking the truth plainly, but I think sometimes it's a form of cowardice. And I hate to use that word, but really I think we have to face that as parents, because nobody wants to be seen as mean. That's a big problem we have right now as Catholics. It's like everything we say is just so mean. And so we kind of shy away, and we don't want to be socially shamed by the people around us, many of whom are divorced, including very, wonderful Catholics that we know. So, but we have to be very plain speaking to kids because they see it all around them. I have an example in the book of my son who, one of his friends in 6th grade came, and my son got in the car one day and he said that his friend had just been crying and crying because his parents were getting a divorce. And, I had to say right then, that's terrible. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, that's okay, it's probably going to be fine. And I needed to say to my son,
No.
That's a terrible thing. And he will be in great pain from here on in. And here's how you need to approach him. And, we just can't kind of brush it away and say, oh, everyone's going to be happy. It's going to be okay. And he saw that his friend wasn't okay. There was lots of therapy that had to happen, and he missed school for a while. So all these things have to be talked about openly with the kids, but without finger pointing and blaming and, that person's terrible and you don't want to have anything to do with that person. I mean, nothing like that, but you have to be honest. So that's maybe a way that the little kids can hear about that particular discussion. And then, of course, as you get into the teen years with divorce, oh boy, there's a lot that they see, especially as they get into high school. Kids who either are having their parents go through a divorce or their friends, you need to have those discussions with someone who might now have a friend in high school who is cutting. Kids start to cut, kids start to do drugs, kids start to drink, kids start to be promiscuous, and a lot of the times, and we don't really recognize this because we don't want to think about it, but ask your teen, do you know if that is related to the fact that your friend's family just went through a divorce? I mean, it's those kind of things, and they can kind of start connecting the dots that there's an identity issue that might be going on there. A lot of these kids then go into LGBT stuff because their identity at home has been shattered and shifted and, changed completely. And so look for stability in another family. And of course, the family that's ready there to help them is the LGBT family because they give unconditional love and acceptance, and you can be part of their family. So all these things are sort of connected, which is interesting because that means, as you can see, even as we take you through the book, all the sexual issues are connected. They're all connected.
Yes.
So your children will start to connect those dots and realize, oh, it all goes back to the fact that we're not using human sexuality the way that God intended us to use it, according to our nature as humans. So they connect those dots, and it's really not that difficult for them to put it all together. But parents have to be brave enough to do it.
Well, we'll try to do that this hour, be brave enough, because listening to you, I'm thinking, yes, if we're raising children who are perfectly accommodated to the sexual revolution, we're raising them for heartbreak, and a lot of heartbreak, just a bucket loads of it. So I want to ask you about that when we come back. I also want to ask you about the chapter on pornography, particularly your advice for talking to little kids about pornography and then the older kids about pornography, because it too is leading to so much heartbreak. We need to, we need help, actually. Help, Layla.
Yes,
we need some help
desperately.
talking about these things. 888-318-7884 is our number if you'd like to speak with Layla Miller about her brand new book that she let Trent Horn put his name on as well, called Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. 888-318-7884 is the number. We're kicking off our annual fall store-wide sale today. It's a great way to save money on all of the great resources you hear about here. Just enter the promo code CALive18 at checkout when you visit shop.catholic.com to save 20% off almost everything in our online store, including Trent's latest book with Layla Miller, the one we're talking about this hour, Made This Way. Go to shop.catholic.com, put in the promo code CALive18, and get your savings of 20% today.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic?
Why can't women become priests?
I don't understand why I have to earn salvation.
How is it possible that God created everything?
Why do I need to confess my sins to a priest? Why is the Catholic Church so unwilling to recognize? The Catholic Church is too rich.
Catholics worship Mary and are committed.
As far as I'm concerned, all religions are equal.
You are called to communion with Dr. David Anders. Tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
That's our brand new theme music there for Catholic Answers Live. First time to be in studio, getting to hear it. I couldn't hear it very well. I know you know this, Nick, but I couldn't hear it very well when we were in the conference hall. But it's fun to hear it, and that's kind of groovy, that little part of it. It's got all kinds of cool little sections like that, and that's what you'll be hearing from now on Catholic Answers Live and on the TV show. Which you can see on Saturdays on the Eternal Word Television Network, EWTN. I am Cy Kellett, your host. It is Catholic Answers Live, and our guest today is Layla Miller, one of the authors, along with Trent Horn, of Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, and prepare we must. And Layla, I'm thinking about the section on pornography, because it strikes me that because of the internet, and because of a very, what I would say is a very sick view of free speech that we have left an entire generation thus far, and probably generations to come if we don't get our act together, vulnerable to really stumbling upon or coming upon some of the most anti-human and soul-destroying imagery that they could. And they're coming upon it as children. So they need preparation, and I worry particularly about the parent who says, not my kid. No, we have all the filters, and we have it doesn't matter how many filters you have or what. The kids go to other kids' houses. Kids sit next to a kid that's got a cell phone. I will say this and just ask for your response to it. You must prepare your children. I wonder if you would agree with that, and then if you would tell us, how do you prepare little kids for this?
Right, because it's a totally different world again. 24/7 streaming of the most vile live action, even fake stuff. It's awful, violent, perverse. So I think they say now kids as young as 8, it's not uncommon at all for them to stumble upon this filth, and it instantly changes your brain. I mean, it is the scourge. I mean, it's demonic. I just feel like this is so demonic. But we don't have a whole lot to say in the chapter for little kids, other than that you have to let them know. And little kids, again, we're all human, so we all kind of instinctively, naturally are compelled or repelled by certain things. And in some cases, things like pornography, even little kids are both compelled and repelled when they see a bad picture. And so we need to teach them that if you see, there are some pictures that we see that might have people that are not, it looks wrong because maybe they're not dressed or different things are happening, that those pictures, we're going to call them bad pictures, because they make you instantly kind of feel like you shouldn't be looking at them. Little kids know this. I mean, it's not, even someone old like me, you saw pornography in a magazine maybe when you're little, you kind of knew that was forbidden. So we recommend, someone has done a brilliant job writing a book for little kids called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. So we really recommend that. But what it does is it tells a child to instantly identify what is a bad picture. To know that, oh, there's something wrong here. I know I shouldn't be looking at this. And then instantly go and tell an adult. And you have to tell your kids, so if you see something like that, you come and tell me. Again, we have to remember, little kids trust their parents. We forget that. We think that, all little kids are kind of, everybody's a rebel, and even little kids are. No, little kids trust their parents. So if you say, hey, if you see anything that looks strange and you don't think it's right, come and tell me that you've seen this picture. We'll talk about it. This book talks, this Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, talks about the thinking brain versus the feeling brain. That you feel, sometimes these pictures will make you feel certain things, but we have to really think, and we have to let our thinking brain be in charge, because these pictures aren't good for us. And so run to tell an adult, and it teaches you also how to tell the difference between maybe something that's in a science book versus something that's not just scientific in nature.
Yes.
So it's tricky because, again, the church teaches us that we have to respect the latency period for the children and keep them innocent and not talk about sexually explicit things to small children. We just are not to do that unless the culture forces our hand. So we want to be careful even with these conversations. And, no smartphones, please, guys, with little kids. I mean, that's just asking for disaster. We don't do the filters at all. We've never done them because it doesn't really, you can get around those so easily. But we do have the computer, in a main room. It's actually up here in my room right now because we renovated something downstairs. But normally it's in the middle of the living room.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also very open with my kids, especially as they kind of hit adolescence. We are very forthright, and we'll tell our boys especially, you're going to get addicted. If you look at these pictures and you indulge that, it is like a drug, and you will become addicted, and it will fry your brain, and it will lead you to mortal sin, and you will have trouble with your relationships, with your marriage. I mean, we kind of just lay it all on the line, and they know. I mean, they know early on. We're not afraid to say that, and we don't say it in a way to scare them so that, we're just these mean, harsh parents, but we say it in a way that is just very truthful, and they know we're telling the truth because as they get older, they see their friends and they see that that's exactly what's happening to their friends. So it's not that, again, it's not that hard to make a child understand what's going to happen if they indulge this or go down that road. And, keep them on your side. They should be able to come to you with anything that they want to talk about. And you, as a parent, can't be afraid of that at all. That's a huge mistake that parents make is not having the confidence to be open and ready to talk to them if they come to you. They'll know if they're able to come to you or not. So don't be afraid of those talks at all. Even if inside you're dying, I don't care.
Right.
You're going to have to just bite the bullet and look them straight in the eye and not blink and talk to them like they need to be talked to gently and lovingly and truthfully, even if you're scared inside. That's your job. So
yeah, because there's a whole world of professionals who are making a lot of money to exploit your child, basically, to addict your child to things, and they need somebody who's on their side. They need an adult who's really on their team, and no matter what, even if they have to come and say, I did this and it's wrong what I did. Yeah, but
yes,
as parents, we know, but you also had an army of professionals trying to, suck you into doing what's wrong.
Right. I have my oldest son. He's now grown and married and has a child of his own. But I have a story in the first book I wrote, Raising Chaste Catholic Men, about when he was 12 years old. And I walked in and he was looking on Amazon and there was a picture. It was like an art book or something, but it was a black and white picture from behind. You couldn't really see very much, but of a form of a woman that was not dressed completely. And he thanks me to this day. He said, my mom didn't shame me, because I could see he was really interested and wanted to, maybe he had clicked on a couple of the pictures and I didn't shame him. I said, it's just, that's not healthy for you because this is what's going to happen if you keep looking, and you're not going to be free anymore. You're not going to be free to just be yourself, and you're going to be enslaved if you keep going. And he was really grateful that I didn't. It wasn't funny, but I kept it lighthearted at the time because, of course, he was already embarrassed that I had walked in and seen him looking at this book cover. So that's kind of the way to approach it. You don't want to ever, the pearl clutching and I can't believe this happened. And, what's going to happen now? No, I mean, calm down.
Right.
It's okay, but let's talk about why you just want to nip it in the bud and don't go any further with that. And here's,
do you share with your young ones that God made them to be interested in this as well? Like they're
absolutely. I mean, I love it. I mean, I always say we're Catholics. We're not Puritans. We, and in my particular family, we're very open and earthy in a way, not in an explicit way, but that's what marriage is for. It's wonderful. That's what God created us for, but not yet. Not yet. Not when we don't have a spouse.
We're going to do calls. I promise. We're going to get the calls when we come back. Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. Layla Miller, one of the authors, is our guest.
Call us now with your question on Catholic Answers Live.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old children or help their teenager deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture decays, we have to know how to talk to our children about these issues. In Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children with the understanding they need, appropriate to their age and maturity level, to meet the world's challenges. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough moral issues, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity and happiness. Order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging onto the shop at Catholic.com.
With the recent commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the release of Humani Vitae, there have been fresh attacks on Catholic teaching from outside and, unfortunately, inside the Church. That's why Catholic Answers thought it critical to provide a vigorous affirmation of Pope Paul VI's prophetic wisdom with our newest book, Inseparable: 5 Perspectives on Sex, Life, and Love in Defense of Humani Vitae. We asked 5 distinguished contributors to reflect on and defend Humani Vitae from 5 perspectives, each of them compelling, together forming a mosaic of truth. Don't be caught uninformed when the topic comes up among friends, family, and coworkers. Order your copy of Inseparable today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or by visiting the shop at Catholic.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest, Layla Miller, one of the authors of Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. All kinds of great advice in there from to parents and to people who are well prepared in the Catholic faith. And they don't just tell you, oh, say this or that. They break it down for you. Here's what you might say to little kids, and here's the approach that will work with little kids. Here's what you could say to bigger kids and the approach that will work with them. If you have questions for Layla Miller, 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-318-7884. We start our calls today with Diana in Missouri, listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM Satellite Radio. Diana, your question for Layla Miller.
Hello, thank you. I've enjoyed so far listening.
Thank you.
My question is, being a parent and a school teacher in a Catholic school, I'm sorry. One of the first things I tell my parents in a meeting with them is, you are the primary educator of your child. I'm just here to facilitate. But my question is sexting. It is a major issue. I've had high schoolers, my own children, and they can do it. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we hear you fine. Yes. Sure.
Okay. They do it through their phones, through apps like Snapchat. They can do it through their gaming system. They can do it on their computer in a game. It is unbelievable, and I think a lot of these kids are very naive as far as the meaning of it. They think it's just playing, and they don't understand the severity of it. And I know my priest one Sunday said, have you checked your child's phone? And it just shocked me, and so I did. And I think as parents, there is no, not being able to check your children's phone or go through their things. He said that is your job as a parent. And so I did. Yes. And, and it did prevent some things that were going on in conversations with my own children that I had to address. And, you know, of course, like you, it was an embarrassing situation, but we handled it in a way that it really helped them grow.
There's a lot there, actually, Diana, so I want to let Layla respond. First, about sexting. Do you deal with that in the book? And how do you deal with it? And then the question of checking in on your kids' phones or devices.
Right. So I don't think we directly addressed sexting. That kind of falls under pornography, premarital sex, even all that. It's in that umbrella of sexual activity outside of marriage and how that can harm a person. But this is going to sound, again, I'm going to go back to that the parents, we have dropped the ball. I can tell you that my kids don't get a smartphone until they are, and this is going to sound crazy, my last child who just graduated high school, actually he just became a Marine, and he's a great man. He's a real wonderful young man. He didn't get a smartphone until he was a senior in high school. And even then, there was no privacy. So he had this flip phone that he went to, long story, but he went to a big public high school, which I know is just fraught with danger. And he had this flip phone that he was even embarrassed to take out of his pocket, quite honestly. But he is such a wonderful young kid because he didn't have that streaming at all. And then when he proved himself to be trustworthy, he got a smartphone a senior year. And again, there's no privacy. I've told all my kids forever, any texts, any Snapchats, and I know people do different accounts and all that, but my kids know the minute that I find that they have lost my trust, it's not going to go well for them. I mean, a lot of privileges would be lost immediately. So we talk openly about all that stuff, but I think we give our kids smartphones way too young. I don't get it. I don't understand it. There is no privacy. That's right. Until they're an adult, until they're out of my house, there's no privacy. I can check anything I want at any time, which doesn't mean I go around snooping, because I don't. But if there's a hint that there could be a problem, I'm responsible for my child's soul. More than anything else, I'm responsible before God as to how I raised those children and whether or not I protected them from the evils all around them, and they're everywhere. So we talk very openly about all that stuff. They know it. So yeah, and if it means changing schools, if it means homeschooling them or taking them out early, it doesn't matter. To me, it's just whatever protects your child. I've been able to do it. We've been able to do it, my husband and I, and our kids are not freaks. They're not different. They're not weird. They're in the world, but not of it. But we've been able to avoid a lot of those snares just by being attentive and having a set of rules that actually are enforced if they are breached. So I would say 90% of what's going on and what's wrong. I mean, some things you just can't help. They're going to see something, a friend's going to say something or show them something. But again, how is that rapport between you and your child, and how long have you been preparing them for this possibility? Years, hopefully, that you've been gaining their trust. And I have a story of a high school girl in the book. She's a friend of my, she's a daughter of my friend who I took to lunch one time. And she said, you know, when I have questions about certain things and certain sexual things, especially that the peers talk about or that, you know, you see, she said, I go directly to my mom because I know my mom is going to tell me the truth, and we have a great relationship. So a lot of it is kind of cultivating this relationship with your child, being completely open and honest when they do ask the question. I could tell you stories about, oh my goodness, the things that some of my kids have asked me to my face. And again, like I said, I just have to stay calm. And but that's why they come to me, because they're like, oh, mom's going to give me an answer on that. And I know it's going to be the right answer. It's going to be the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. So, but it's a treacherous world. It's a treacherous world. And these smartphones,
I know.
Drives me crazy.
It is a recipe for disaster. Diana, thanks so much for those excellent questions, really helpful questions. Layla Miller is our guest. Our number, 888-318-7884. The book is made this way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. I think even if you didn't have the smartphones, if you don't do if you had no internet in your house, or just all you had, say, was network television, your children would still be getting an education in human sexuality that is contrary to what's actually good for human beings. I mean, it's nutty, actually.
Disordered.
So
It's totally disordered.
what about when the kid, you could have okay, Layla, I've done all that. But now my kid comes home and says something which in a certain way you might even be proud of them for in a way. They say, well, it's not fair that only men and women get married. That's not fair. And why aren't we fair and let anybody marry whoever they want? Okay, so you see the scenario I've painted of
Absolutely.
a perfectly good and diligent parent, but nonetheless the message has gotten through to the child that there is something unfair about saying, no, marriage is for men and women. That's what marriage is. How do you address that?
Right. So a couple of things. First, you hope that you had already built the foundation as they were younger to make them understand what marriage is about, what the nature of marriage is. Because what we're finding now is you have kids and even parents, which is why the book is great, because it's actually going to teach the parents as it teaches the parents to teach the kids. Because most parents haven't been well catechized as to, well, maybe it isn't fair. I got to marry who I loved and felt romantically, in love with, and why should I deny that? Who is the church? Even Catholics say, well, who's the church to say that civilly, that the government we don't want to impose our views. So we talk a lot about that because, again, it goes back to marriage itself. The nature of marriage isn't about feeling romantic about someone, and therefore love is love, and you get to just marry anyone you want, because we haven't gone back the step and defined marriage. What is marriage? And so we do that here. And when you take a child to that and you say, look, it's not unfair that something can't be used against its nature. It's not unfair if we're saying this thing ceases to be this thing if we do something else or call it something else or introduce other things to it. That's not unfair. That's just saying, well, a dog isn't a cat, right? So if marriage has a nature to it, that God created marriage to be a certain thing, and again, we can see that by the design of our bodies. We can see that universally, because marriage as a conjugal union, bride, groom, coming together one flesh and forming a family, and children flow from that, only that particular type of union. That's something very special it's not something the church just has as this religious kind of precept. That's a universal. You see that in every time and culture and place. You see that marriage, that a bride always presupposed a groom, and a groom always presupposed a bride. Not a Catholic thing, although thankfully we as Catholics understand it to its fullness. So if you start to back up and teach what the nature is of marriage, they will start to understand, okay, it's not that you're just trying to be mean. It's that the romance view of marriage has never before been the essential element to what makes marriage. So again, we're just trying to put these kids on the footing of how to reason, we're moral beings and we have the ability to reason. Lower animals don't have that. We're made in the image and likeness of God. So we can reason things out by looking at a thing and saying, what is its nature? What's the nature of a human being, a body, sex? What's the nature of marriage? And that's the way we have to teach our kids, because they live in mass confusion right now. It's chaotic. It's a morally chaotic world. They know that. So if you ground them in what is true and what makes sense, because remember, every human soul is designed to respond to truth, goodness, and beauty. That's how God designed our souls to respond. So if you can show them a world that makes sense and that is ordered, it's like a light bulb going off. They're going to understand. And then you're going to be able to say, look what happens when we go against God's created order. And you see the disaster. They see the disaster all around them. They don't see happy peers and stable families, and they see very sad and depressed and really messed up kids all around them. And we want to give them the freedom not to be so confused, and to be a light to their friends, because they love their friends. So we can give them those tools, but we have to learn how to speak those words to them.
And that's what this book does. Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. Layla Miller and Trent Horn are the authors. You can speak with Layla right now, 888-318-7884. But before I let you talk to her, I got something I want to read to you, if you don't mind, Layla.
Sure.
A note from Mary in Ohio. I just wanted to let you know that I have just purchased my second carton of 20 Made This Way books. I took my first box of 20 books to my women's study group in my parish this morning and sold out within 15 minutes and have a list of about 15 more orders. This book is so important for parents who want to preserve the minds, the faith, and the virtue of their children. Good Catholic parents are hungry for the kind of assistance this book gives them. I am very enthusiastic about this book and would love to see other missionaries following my example. Thanks, Trent, Layla, and Catholic Answers. And then a little bit later, she wrote us this message. P.S. My message to you needs to be updated. I am purchasing my third case this morning. Other friends are asking for copies. Layla, that's from Mary from Ohio.
Thank you, Mary.
It really is needed. This book is needed.
Desperately.
Yeah, and when we come back from the break, I do want to ask you a little bit about the parent who says, okay, my kid is 18 and I haven't done these things that Layla has talked about. Have I? And she just said I have to face God for that. I don't. A lot of us are in that situation,
Right.
Layla. But I want your help with that. 888-318-7884, the number. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Bringing you the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
St. Paul's street evangelization isn't like other evangelism you might have seen on the streets. We don't yell, and we don't force anyone to pay attention to us. Instead, St. Paul's street evangelization is committed to presenting a positive, passionately Catholic presence to a world hungry for truth. For more information, or to start a chapter of your own, go to www.streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com. It's time to do our part.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
And I wanted to tell you guys how great your show is because I listened to you guys for every day for the past 5.5 months. It's because of you guys that I came to the Catholic faith. Now I'm going to church on Sunday for the first time because I just got out yesterday from jail. And I got my mom to go too, and my girlfriend is also going with me. Wow. She's willing to give the Catholic faith a try.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Dig it, Nick. Dig that crazy music. Thanks, Nick. That's the brand new theme music here at Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and our guest this hour is Layla Miller. Her book that she allowed Trent Horn to put his name on is called Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. All right, so I am going to go back and let callers have their say, but I want to get to that question about, Layla, you're making me feel like I kind of blew it as a parent. Maybe I didn't prepare my kids early. Maybe my kid is 11 and I wish I had started early. Maybe my kid is 18, maybe 30. Okay, so now what do I do?
So, well, first of all, we are Catholics and we are people of redemption, and that's what we do. We're people of hope. There's no better place to be than in the Catholic Church for hope. So I always just say, if you blew it, or if your child, which she has free will. Sometimes free will is a pesky thing, and they're going to do, ultimately, they're going to choose whether to go along with their formation or not. Or if you blew it and you forgot to form them, or you didn't have the words, you didn't know how to do it. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where your Catholic faith comes in, because you are a mother or a father, and you are a praying, God, please, a praying mother or a father. If you become a saint, I say this all the time, in the Bible, it says that the prayers of the righteous avail much, James 5:16. So the holier you are, the closer you are to God. So in other words, become a saint. This is what we're supposed to do, right? This is the whole point of life. Your prayers will be more powerful. So if you can't anymore influence with your words, and I'm not saying you can't, because certainly there are wonderful things you could still say and do with even your adult children, but start to be just a powerhouse Catholic prayer. Pray, go to daily mass, pray the rosary, do what you can, and offer all of that for your child, because ultimately, until that last breath, everyone can turn to God, and we want our kids to be in heaven with us. That's the point. So don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. And your prayers become more powerful the holier you get. That's why the saints have much more powerful prayers than we do. So get to that point, and you're not helpless. There's absolutely no reason to think that you're helpless here.
I want to go to calls, but the thing is, everybody just called all at once. So I'm just going to do a little thing we call caller roulette. I'm going to push the button. I'm going to see who's there. We're going to see what question we get. You are on with Layla Miller. Who am I speaking with? Hello? This is why we don't always play caller roulette, Layla. Okay, I'll try another one. All right, you're on with Layla Miller. Are you there?
Hi, this is Rob.
Hi, Rob. Your question real quick, please.
Hi, yeah, real quick. Layla, do you see this, the cultural tide turning on this issue of, sexuality in the culture, or as Catholics, are we kind of forced to take a Benedict option approach or engage in the culture? What's your thoughts on, is this tide going to turn, or is it going to crash and burn and kind of every man left for themselves?
Thank you, Rob.
That's a great question. Well, Rob, I'm kind of half and half on that. Like I have such hope. I always have this hope that, you know what, this is so explosive and so true and so real and so powerful that every human being would respond to this type of, to know about the created order and then live that way and flourish. That I think once, someone in a community gets it, then it'll just be like wildfire and everybody will start to be wanting this. But on the other hand, I'm also realistic and we are under some serious attacks. So I have to say we should just teach our children well. We're responsible directly for our own children. And then we will see that if they are taught well and if they do embrace their faith, they are then the lights. I call us plants too. Like we're plants. We're kind of, in the world, but we're plants. And it's amazing how people do respond to those who seem to not have existential angst. There's a peace in people who get how the created order works and how nature, the natural law works, and so how God made us. So I see that a lot, where people find peace being around people who don't have this existential angst, and that includes your kids. If your kids are taught well, people will want to talk to your kids like, well, how come you don't feel suicidal, or you're not cutting, or you're not promiscuous, or you're not doing all these things. And then they can be lights to others. So it's kind of both. I feel we're in an uphill battle, but we've got Christ and the truth on our side. So
what makes you think it's an uphill battle? No, I'm only kidding. Rob, is that an acceptable answer to you?
It is. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you playing caller roulette with us. Anonymous caller, we go to you now. Hello, Anonymous. Your question for Layla Miller.
My question is, when kids are around adults who are not taught so well, when an adult blows it, who's in a parental figure such as a godfather who views porn and then is faced with a teenager who probably someday will try and then will ask the adults, well, have you ever done it? And then the adult that they've respected for how long?
The question many adults fear, have you ever done it? About a whole variety of things.
Right. And so that's going to depend on your relationship with that child and the child's age. Because I certainly wasn't I was a Catholic my whole life, but I wasn't a practicing Catholic until probably I figured out my faith at age 27. I already had 3 kids by then and had a whole high school and college life before that. So it really depends on the kid. I mean, I have no problem telling my kids if they're, maybe 13, 12, 11, and what about you? I'm like, honey, that is not your business. But we'll talk about that when you're a little bit older. But right now, let me tell you this. And, we just have those kind of conversations where I'm still the grown-up. There are certain things they can know. There are certain things they don't need to know. And then when they become adults, because now I have 5 adults out of my 8, some of them, we've had very open conversations as they become adults. So again, it really depends on the child, your relationship with the child, what you think the child can handle. As long as you're confident and you're able to express, well, yes, let's say you want to say, yes, I did that, or that person did that. But that was before I understood how damaging it was. I'm here to tell you, don't ever do what I did. And no, you may not be okay. Maybe I'm okay, but you may not be. You don't know. And Christ doesn't want you to act that way anyway. And we we want to act the way that we were made to act. We want to be fully human, and to be fully human, we have to act according to our nature. And then you just show them. I mean, my kids, again, you can see all around what happens when you don't follow God's design for human sexuality, especially. It's everywhere. This is not brain surgery. They see it. So, so you can be honest. And again, it's so individual, but I wouldn't say never, ever, ever can you say anything, and I wouldn't say lay it all out there, because that's probably not great either at a certain age. But they're going to see it. There's no getting around it. Everyone around them now is, transitioning to this gender, and everything on TV is gay marriage. It's harder and harder to not talk about it, but that's why we need to start young and really lay that foundation. And when they trust you, when they're young and they can see it, and people have said, and I've heard Catholics say this, we don't want to teach based on natural law because that's outdated, and people want to talk about their experience and their feelings. It's like, well, that's great too, but you have to set a foundation. If you don't set a foundation, what do you have but feelings? Well, as we've said, try to debate anything just on feelings and see how far you get. It has to be grounded in something.
The book is Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues. Layla Miller, its author, is our guest. Anonymous, what do you make of that answer? Was that acceptable to you?
Excuse me, that was great.
Oh, very good. All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We appreciate your call. You say that about natural law, and I think that's what you've done throughout the book. You and Trent have just tried to connect people with there is a nature to things. That nature is given to us by God. We can discover that nature, and to use things, whether they are our sexuality or our any other power that we have against its nature, is not going to work out well for us.
That's right.
I do feel like, but people will not reason with you anymore. Like, there's so many people. I mean, maybe your own children will. They'll listen to reason, but the world does seem to be like, stop talking like that. That's just mean. You're just being mean. That's your cover for being mean.
Yes, and that is another thing that so our responsibility is first and foremost to the kids, and this is where the problem lies, because adults are equally susceptible to wanting people to like us, and so the neighbors or the relatives or even your own even grandma and grandpa may disagree with you in the church, and your siblings and cousins, and you have to be brave. This is the one I always say. There's like two virtues that are lacking today: chastity and courage. And so we have this idea that we just want to just not make anybody angry or make anybody feel bad. And it's like, no, actually souls are so important, and we are responsible for these souls that God gave us to raise. So it might entail making people unhappy with us, other adults in society. And that's going to have to be okay. And we have to get past that somehow. And that's not easy. I get it. It's not easy, but it's that's why I say find some good friends. There's so much wrong with the internet, but one good thing is you can find some really good, solid people who think like you do and who will support you when you're weak, and having that problem. But
right.
Yeah, but we have to. It's easy. I mean, when you start with kids, you can say to them, I always say, everyone get a copy of Emperor's New Clothes. Right there, you inoculate your kids against the whole transgender thing. Start early, have them memorize these old fables and things, and there's a right order, and they're made to be reasonable. Humans are reasonable.
Amen, sister. Really appreciate it, Layla Miller. Thanks for a very fine hour.
Thank you, Si. I appreciate it so much.
The book, again, Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, getting rave reviews. I think it's a very important book. I hope you'll get it. You can get it at shop.catholic.com. Next hour, we talk about your worries. Do you worry too much? Are you constantly worried? Guess what? That's not how God made you, and He doesn't want you to. And we're going to talk about what the Catholic Church and modern psychology offer in the way of overcoming those worries. Right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Can you trust the basis of the Christian faith? The Christian faith is under constant attack today in numerous ways, but the attack that does the most damage is the one that asks a deceptively simple question. What if your faith is based on a myth? The skeptics come with arguments to cast doubt in numerous ways, often attacking the reliability of the New Testament and the Gospels. And the sad news is that most people don't know how to answer these charges. The good news is that there are answers to each and every one of them. Good, solid answers. That's why Catholic Answers Studios has just released Jimmy Akin's new DVD, The Dawn of Christian History. With his characteristic wit and passion as a master storyteller, Jimmy takes you through an exciting detective story that reveals how history supports the Christian faith. Order your copy of The Dawn of Christian History today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hi, this is Trent Horn. Did you know that you can have me and other Catholic Answers speakers headline your next conference or parish event? Go to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com to get all the information you need to book one of our dynamic speakers today. That's CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com.
Do you enjoy tedious lectures full of facts you'll never use? We didn't think so. That's why we're launching the Council of Trent, Trent Horn's engaging new podcast. Every week, you'll get lively lessons in Catholic teaching, as well as a new conversation roadmap that will help you share your Catholic faith with anyone, anytime, anywhere. Visit TrentHornPodcast.com now to find out how you can subscribe to this exciting new podcast.
Did you know that Catholic Answers Live is on TV? What began as a monthly series on EWTN in April of 2017 is now going to be coming to you on a weekly basis. You can catch Catholic Answers Live TV Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN, with an encore at 2:30 a.m. on Sundays. We'll also be available soon on Apple TV, Roku, and the Augustine Institute's multimedia platform, Form. Make a point of making Catholic Answers Live TV part of your weekly viewing, and we'll see you on the airwaves.
Sharing the gospel with family and friends can be challenging. It's especially hard when they won't even hear you out because of all the mental roadblocks they've built up. This is Carlo Broussard, and in my new book, Prepare the Way, my aim is to help you tackle that essential first step to apologetics and evangelization, getting people to listen with an open mind. Even our best witness can bounce right off folks like these if we don't prepare the way first, breaking down barriers and leaving minds and souls free to encounter the truth. I'll give you evidence and arguments and step-by-step strategies based on asking the right questions to help them overcome their obstacles and make a straight path for the Lord. Order your copy of Prepare the Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
What difference does it make who or what you worship or what you believe? Sharing the faith used to make some people mad because it challenged their own strong beliefs. Today, it makes a lot of people yawn because they don't have strong beliefs about anything. Religious indifference is the great spiritual sickness of our age, a product of the relativism that dominates modern culture. This is Matt Nelson, and in my new book, Just Whatever, I'll take down the building blocks of religious indifference one by one. We'll look at the different kinds of indifference you tend to encounter in your friends and family members to see where they come from and why they're seductive. What you believe matters. Find out why and what to do about it in my new book, Just Whatever. You can order your copy of Just Whatever by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Tim Staples, Trent Horn, Cy Kellett, Chris Check, Carlo Broussard. Our on-fire lineup of speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker for your event, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Delighted to have you with us on this Monday afternoon, early evening, early autumn. summer passed. I didn't even notice it. I missed it this year. Usually it's a big day for me. I just realized, oh my gosh, it's October 1st. That means summer passed recently, and I didn't even notice it's passing. I guess I'm getting old. 888-318-7884 is our number, and we're talking about being anxious this hour. How much do you worry? Would you be willing to say maybe in your life worry is a problem, or maybe in the life of a loved one or another of yours? Worry, anxiety, it's really something of epidemic proportions. And our guest integrates insights from our Catholic faith with cutting-edge psychological research to help the anxious person form a plan for conquering anxiety and living a life of true peace, which I will venture to say from a theological perspective, I think we can say with absolute certainty that is the life that Christ wants for you, a life of true peace. 888-318-7884, as I said, is the number. If you prefer the spelled version, it's 888-31-TRUTH. And who is this guest of which I speak? Dr. Gregory Popcak, the founder and director of the Pastoral Solutions Institute, a Catholic telecounseling practice that provides help and faithful solutions to tough marriage, family, and personal problems. He is a psychotherapist and speaker, author of well over now a dozen books, I imagine, that give practical advice on all kinds of things. And he and his wife, Lisa, host More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak each weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central on the EWTN radio network. As I said, the brand new book is on anxiety. It's called Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. Just saying it makes me feel better. Dr. Popcak, thanks for being with us.
Deep cleansing breath.
Yes, I need that deep cleansing breath. In fact, I actually do. Now, I thought the book was out already, but it's coming out the 19th, so you can pre-order it on.
That's right. Yeah, it'll be available in about a week or so.
I gotcha. Okay, so is that really true that anxiety, worry, upset is a epidemic?
Yeah, no question about it. About 1 in 5 visits to the primary care physician have to do with anxiety. About 20% of Americans struggle with full-blown diagnosed anxiety disorders, and that's just the people who have actually gone to the doctor to talk about it. So the reality is stress, worry, anxiety is a pretty common part of our human experience, and for a lot of people it becomes a very serious problem that inhibits their ability to function at work or in their life or relationships. And so the book is really all about how we can get a handle on our stress, worry, and anxiety, whatever degree we're experiencing it in our lives.
Now, you say it's part of the common human experience. I'm sure that that's correct. Would you say that there are factors that make it worse for the person today than maybe in olden times?
Well, sure. I mean, and one of the things we talk about in the book, I actually address anxiety from a physical, psychological, spiritual, and relational perspective. So we try to look at those different dimensions of anxiety and how each of those aspects of our experience contribute to it. But, one of the more, to respond to your question specifically, one of the more common contributors to our anxiety now is the fact that we're all disconnected from one another. I mean, on the one hand, we're more connected because we're wired into each other. On the other hand, we have weaker relationships, weaker ties than we used to have. Communities are not as integrated in terms of relationship as they once were. Their families are disintegrated in many ways. The reality is we have less time to spend on our important relationships. And, it's interesting. The brain is actually wired to emphasize negative experiences, except in one condition. But to emphasize that for just a second, think about it, right? You get 10 people that compliment you and one person that criticizes you. Which one do you think about? Right?
Oh, that's so easy. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
Right. Okay, so the brain is actually wired to emphasize negative experiences over positive experiences, except in one condition, when we feel connected to other people. So our connection to others is one of the most important and also most overlooked aspects of defeating anxiety. The more alone we feel, the more isolated we feel, the more disconnected we feel from the people in our lives, the more prone to anxiety we actually are. And it kind of makes sense, right? From a historical perspective. If you're walking through the woods by yourself, you got to watch out for that saber-toothed tiger jumping out, right? But if you're walking with your tribe, you got somebody who has your back, you can relax. Well, it says in Genesis, it's not good for man to be alone, right? And the theology of the body really reminds us that we can learn a lot about God's plan for our lives by the way our bodies are created. And our bodies tell us that we were not created to be alone. But when we feel cut off and we feel isolated, that's when the anxiety increases.
I have to say, it seems like if you look at the modern world, then especially the post-mass media modern world, it's like a big machine for giving you false or imitation connections and cutting down on the real connections you have with other people.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm always reminded of a book by Terry Pratchett, a fantasy writer who had a book called Good Omen, Bad Omen, which was sort of about the end of the world. And he had his version of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right, where these four bikers. And the one biker that was famine, he showed up on the world, and what he did, he created this product that allowed people to eat as much as they want, but it didn't have any calories or any nutrition in it. So they were starving to death the more they ate. And I feel like that's a perfect metaphor for our wired world, where we're more connected to people all over the world than we ever have been, and never have we been more lonely and isolated at the same time.
Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety is the name of the brand new book from Dr. Gregory Popcak, who's given us very, very many fine books that will help you in your marriage or in your parenting or just getting through life in a fully human way. If you'd like to speak with Dr. Popcak, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. I have to say, I think there are people who will look at the title, Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety, and they will immediately conclude it's not possible. It cannot be done.
Sure. And that's one of the things I address right up front in the book. I mean, is that a tall order? Well, sure it is. But I think it's important, especially for Christians, to realize who we really are. Again, the theology of the body reminds us that the person that we are the person that we see staring back at us in the mirror is not the person we were created to be, nor is it the person that we're going to be when God is done with us, right? The reality is we define who we really are based on what God intended us to be from the beginning of time and what God is working to make us at the end of time. What we are right now, that's a transition, right? But what we're working toward is allowing His grace to work in our lives and work in our hearts so that His promise can be fulfilled in us. And we were not created for anxiety. We weren't created to be anxious, and God intends one day to deliver us from that anxiety. In fact, there are literally hundreds of scripture verses, I quote several of them in the book, but hundreds of scripture verses that talk about leaving our worries behind. There's no fear in love. Perfect love drives out fear. Von Balthasar, the theologian, said, when one surveys, even from a distance, how often and how openly Scripture speaks about fear and anxiety, the initial conclusion presents itself: the Word of God is not afraid of fear or anxiety.
But we are, aren't we?
We are.
Right, we need to eat that scroll, so to speak. 888-318-7884 is the number, 888-318-7884. Already loads of callers, and I'd like to let you talk with as many folks as you can this hour. Shall we go to calls?
Sounds great.
All right, I will just remind folks again, the book is called Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety, and it'll be out on the 19th. You can pre-order it now. 888-318-7884 is our number if you'd like to speak with the author, Dr. Gregory Popcak. We go now to Carlos in Houston, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Carlos, your question for Dr. Popcak.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Popcak, and thank you for the show. Question is, I have experienced anxiety for many years and the worry. I experienced, of course, a lot of help from a secular world, and it's full of self-help and industry and also therapists. I'd like to hear what any specific advice from you from the holy world side, spiritual world advice. And probably another related question about confession. I go to confession regularly. Is fear, worry considered a sin?
It's not a sin. No feeling is a sin, because in order for something to be a sin, we have to will it, and we have to know that it's wrong, right? It has to be concerned with a serious matter, but we also have to be able to consciously act on something. A feeling bubbles up kind of unbidden from our limbic system, microseconds before we're even consciously aware of it. We can be responsible for our feelings, though, even though they're not sinful per se. And that's really the theme of the book. It's not your fault that you have anxiety, but we can respond to that anxiety in healthy ways that allow us to let God's grace into our hearts and for Him to be able to transform us from the inside out so that we can decrease that anxiety through His grace and hopefully ultimately overcome it. One of the things that there are lots of different things that talk about in the book, and some of them are drawn from secular sources, and some of them are drawn from our Christian spiritual tradition as well. But since you're asking specifically about are there faithful things that we can do, yes. In fact, there are several studies, most studies actually show that people of faith are less prone to anxiety than other folks. But in order to get that faith benefit, you have to know a couple of things. First of all, you have to actually feel attached to God. I talk about different attachment styles in the book and how they relate to God. And the secure attachment style basically says, I trust that God can take care of me, and I trust that I can be vulnerable to God. I trust that even when I mess up, God loves me and will forgive me and is working in me. But sometimes when we struggle with anxiety in our spiritual life, we encounter maybe a more anxious attachment style with God, where we feel like, God isn't going to forgive me if I don't cross all my T's and dot my I's, that I could let God down in ways that he wouldn't be able to bring me back. And we can obsess about that. So you mentioned confession, for example. Sometimes people with anxiety develop something called scrupulosity, where they go to confession over and over and over again for the same sins, hoping that this time God will forgive them. And that actually, scrupulosity can be a sin, because it separates us from God's mercy. So what I suggest to you, Carlos, as one thing that you can do to address your anxiety, and this won't cure all of it, but it can really be helpful, is to sit down every day in your prayer time and really reflect on God's love for you and all the ways He's providing for you. Write them down every day. What are the ways that you experienced God's love today? What are the ways that you experienced God's providence today? Give Him specific thanks for those particular things, not just generic thanks, oh God, you're so big, you're so wonderful, thank you, but specifically for those particular things that He did to say, Carlos, I love you, and I am here for you, and I am taking care of you, and you can trust me. When you write down, say, 5 to 10 of those things, it should be fairly easy to find those things if you take some time to really reflect on it. Give thanks to Him for each one of those things, and really reflect on how much God is moving heaven and earth to be with you and to show you that He loves you, and to really reflect on that. St. Ignatius of Loyola talked about the importance of really confirming ourselves in God's love before, for example, we do an examination of conscience, before we do any kind of discernment, because really we need to feel that perfect love that casts out that fear that would prevent us from allowing His grace into our hearts. Now, is that going to cure all of your anxiety? No. But what research has really shown is that people who take that time to be grateful and to keep a gratitude journal, to do prayerful exercises that relate to gratitude, can increase their happiness set point by about 25% and significantly decrease their anxiety as well. So since you're looking for some spiritual resources that you can turn to, I really recommend that you take at least 15 minutes a day to sit down and really praise God for the ways that He's provided for you that day and shown you His love.
Okay, Carlos?
Yeah, that's a very, very helpful. I really, really appreciate. I just confirm I hear you clearly. During the frenzy of daily challenges at work, when I come out those anxiety, fear, sometimes really is a subconscious level. I do not need to confess those fears, anxiety, because they are not willed by me. Is correct?
That's right. But I will say this. What people don't realize is that we can get anointing of the sick for anxiety disorders or depression or other emotional problems as well. So I would encourage you that to get that sacrament of healing that is the anointing of the sick, so that you can really open yourself up to that level of grace through the sacraments as well.
Thanks, Carlos. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more with Dr. Greg Popcak on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
Your questions, Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
I'm really a revert. There are a lot of converts on Catholic radio, a lot of reverts, those who have come back to the faith. And ever since I came back to a practice of my faith, I started praying the rosary, going to even daily Mass, God has led me on an amazing journey and used me in a lot of incredible ways that I never dreamed would have been possible.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, tonight, midnight Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host this hour. Dr. Greg Popcak is our guest. He's got a brand new book, Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. If you'd like to know more about him and what he does, or if you would need some counseling from faithful Catholics who can help you, go to CatholicCounselors.com. CatholicCounselors.com is Dr. Greg Popcak's website. That's the website of the Pastoral Solutions Institute?
That's right, CatholicCounselors.com.
CatholicCounselors.com. And lots of calls for Dr. Popcak. And so we go now to Ann in Cleveland, Ohio. Ann, your question for Dr. Gregory Popcak.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I suffer from pretty bad anxiety, and I take medication for it and just to keep it in check, and it doesn't really work. And I also try to pray a lot. And I'm not really sure what to do anymore, and I thought maybe you could give me some advice.
Well, so I'm just curious about the kind of help that you're getting. You talked about getting the medication. Are you currently receiving any kind of counseling as well?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell me a little bit about the nature of the counseling?
No.
Maybe you didn't understand the question. I said, can you tell me a little bit about what kind of counseling you're getting or what you're doing in counseling?
Well, it's actually with a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. I'm going for therapy just stemming from a lot of issues from my childhood.
Are you getting any kind of techniques or tools to use between session, or is it mostly a supportive kind of counseling?
It's mostly supportive.
Okay. And that's good. I mean, I'm glad you're getting that. But one of the things that really has been shown to be the gold standard in research is something called cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy works to help you identify what are both the messages that are kind of going through your head and the memories that are attached to those messages, and how can you challenge those messages in a way that allows you to reconnect to healthier, more positive and supportive experiences that you've had, or more positive movements of the spirits, if you will. One of the things I talk about in Unworried is I integrate cognitive behavior therapy with principles from Ignatian spiritual discernment of spirits. So we talk a lot about how, we have different thoughts that pass through our head, right? Where do they come from? Well, St. Ignatius would suggest that these different movements of the Spirit, if you will, are either from the Holy Spirit, if they lead you closer to God, or make it easier in some way, or challenge you in some way to be more the person God wants you to be, or they're desolations, they're whisperings of an evil spirit, if they are making it harder for you to connect to God, or harder for you to be the person that God wants you to be in some way. So we talk about how to identify those different voices, if you will, those whisperings on the spiritual level, on the psychological level, and help you start to do spiritual warfare against those messages that essentially lead to anxiety, because they cause us to feel separated from our best selves, from the people who love us, and even from God's grace. And so getting the kind of help that would allow you to start to challenge those messages and replace them with those more supportive, loving, nurturing messages from the Holy Spirit, and connect those with actual experiences that make those messages resonate for you, would be a really positive step. So we talk a lot about that in Unworried, and I'd recommend actually talking through that chapter in the book with your therapist right now, so that you can begin to do more of that kind of work. In terms of the medication, what recent studies have found is that anxiety medication can help in the short term, but a lot of people who are on it find what you're experiencing, that in the long term it can make recovery more difficult, because people have a tendency to lean more on the anxiety medication than they do on doing the exercises that can help them actually recover. So I'm not suggesting you get off the medication, but I am suggesting that maybe you talk with your doctor about coming to decrease the medication a little bit more and doing more exercises in between session, so that you can learn to build those skills and increase your resilience, as opposed to having to rely on that medication that's not really working all that well for you anyway. So those are two things to kind of follow up with your therapist about.
Okay, Ann?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very, very much. I'm going to continue going to callers, and if you have a call and you'd like to talk to Dr. Popcak about anxiety, his brand new book, Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety, we welcome your call, 888-318-7884. Before I go to those calls, however, I want to just share a little a paraphrase of what Sarah said on Facebook, and that is that she suffered with anxiety, very severe anxiety that turned into agoraphobia for about 20 years, and she was told that she just didn't have enough faith. She went to a therapist who is helping her work through what in fact was PTSD. What about that response? You just need to have more faith.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely not true at all. And I don't want anybody to think that what I'm saying is that at all. The reality is, faithful, prayerful people get anxious, and it's not a question of we don't have enough faith, that we're somehow failing God. What I would say is that we can learn to use the spiritual resources that God gives us through our faith to become more resilient to stress, worry, and anxiety, and to respond more effectively to the stress, worry, and anxiety that we feel. And so it's not a matter of I've failed because I don't believe that God's going to save me from this enough, or that somehow I don't trust God enough. It's more that there are things that are either things that are not going right in my psychology or even my biology, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when she talks about PTSD, trauma actually does rewire the brain in important ways. Now, the good news is psychotherapy is like physical therapy for the brain. And by doing the kinds of exercises I was just talking about with Ann, you can learn to rewire your brain through a process called neuroplasticity. But it takes some work, and it takes some effort. And doing the kinds of exercises I was starting to talk about with Ann, as well as having a healthy prayer life that allows me to feel more connected to God, more aware of His presence in my life, more aware of the ways He's loving me and providing for me, can all do those things that help rewire the brain and enable it to be a less anxious mind. That said, it's not my fault that I have anxiety. It's not because of my lack of faith. There is something genuinely wrong when I'm feeling that anxiety, and especially if it becomes ingrained, my brain does have to be rewired in order to experience more peace.
I hope that's helpful to you, Sarah. It is not the Catholic position is not what some people may think. It doesn't equate to the prosperity gospel or to the word of faith gospel or this idea of the power of positive thinking. That's not what the gospel of Jesus is about. The gospel of Jesus is about taking up your cross each day and following. But if you need a doctor, you go to a doctor. If you need a counselor, you go to a counselor.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's not our fault if we're sick. It's not our fault if we're experiencing anxiety or even anxiety disorders. But the good news is there is a way to respond to those things that can help us find healing.
888-318-7884 is the number. Dr. Greg Popcak is our guest. His brand new book is Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. You can find out all about him and what he does at CatholicCounselors.com. We go now to Martha in San Antonio, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Martha, your question for Dr. Popcak.
Thanks for taking the call, and I appreciate y'all being on the air.
Thank you.
We have an 11-year-old daughter that we're trying to deal with her anxiety, but it seems like there are times when it increases, and then there are other times where there's no mention of it at all. But we're trying to get some guidance on what's the best way to guide her. We try to reinforce that besides telling her we love you, we know that she has talents, and we try to encourage her, but sometimes it doesn't seem to be enough.
Yeah, what happens when you try to talk someone through their anxiety is very often they get more anxious because what they hear in their heads is, you don't understand. In fact, Sai, you were talking about positive thinking, and there's been some research recently that shows that, ironically, positive thinking can actually make anxiety and depression worse, right? Because in the front of your head, you're saying things like, oh, gosh darn it, I can handle this. God's not going to give me anything more than I can handle in the front of your head. In the back of your head, you're hearing, yeah, right. And what's the voice you listen to? You listen to the yeah, right, okay?
Right.
So when you're saying saying, Martha, when you're saying to your daughter, oh, sweetheart, you have so many gifts and I love you so much and it's all going to be okay, what she's hearing in the back of her head is, Mom doesn't get it at all, right? I mean, you're doing the right thing. I mean, you're saying good things, but it's not connecting because she's too anxious. So why isn't she hearing it? Well, because when you're anxious, what happens is there's a part of your brain, if you actually do this for me, okay? Take your right hand, tuck your thumb into your palm, and put your 4 fingers over top of your thumb. So you make a fist, but your thumb's tucked to the inside, okay? That's a model of your brain, okay? And so if you imagine stress starting to affect your brain, you lift up those 4 fingers. That's your cortex going offline. Now you flip
We got to
your
finish
lid.
this thought on the other side. I'm sorry, I didn't do the
Sorry, I
clock
didn't hear
very
the
well.
music.
No, that's fine. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back and figure out how your brain is like your fist with Dr. Greg Popchak right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
So, you're listening to Catholic Radio. I think it's safe to say that you probably want to become like Jesus. Theosis is a fancy word used to explain the process of becoming like Christ. It's how God takes sinners like you and me and transforms us into who we were created to be. Basically, rockin' saints. Clumsy Theosis is a podcast where I take 2,000 years of Catholic goodness, draw from the great minds and spiritual masters of the Church, boil it down, distill it, and give practical advice to 21st century Christians. Basically, we'll learn how to do this Catholic thing like a boss. Subscribe to Clumsy Theosis wherever good podcasts are found.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old or help their teenager deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture's moral center continues to fly apart, and with every form of deviance publicly aired and celebrated, we have no choice but to equip our kids to understand about such issues. In Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children with the understanding they need, appropriate to their age and maturity level, to meet the world's challenges. Silence can no longer be an option. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough moral issues, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity and happiness. Order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging on to the shop at Catholic.com.
Catholic Answers Live. Dr. Greg Popchak, our guest this hour. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. And Dr. Popchak's latest book, Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. You can get that wherever good Catholic books are sold, and probably just wherever books are sold, I imagine, in a few days here. So look for that, Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. Dr. Popchak, along with his wife Lisa, are the hosts of More to Life with Greg and Lisa Popchak. That's a great title for people whose names are Greg and Lisa. More to Life with Greg and Lisa Popchak every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern and different hours across the country. But we were talking with Martha before we went to the break, and she was talking about her daughter's anxiety and you were saying that sometimes positive reinforcement is not the thing to do with an anxious person, and you suggested we put our thumb into our palm, wrap our fingers around it. We've got a fist now, and you were going to explain how the human brain...
Yeah, well, so I was explaining why Martha's daughter can't hear all those warm, loving, supportive messages that she's trying to give her, all right? So your brain is sort of like a fist with the thumb tucked on the inside, okay? And as your stress goes up, those 4 fingers lift up, so you've flipped your lid, okay? That's your cortex going offline. Now, the thumb that's still tucked into the palm there, that's your limbic system. That's the seat of all the reactions and emotions that bubble up, from your unconscious, essentially. So when you're anxious and stressed, the limbic system takes over, okay? You're just reacting to everything. But it's the cortex, those 4 fingers that represent you flipping your lid, go offline. And that's the part that needs to be reconnected to the limbic system to be able to hear all those warm, loving, supportive messages. So the first step, Martha, before you even say anything to your daughter, is say, hey, honey, come here a second. and just hold her in your arms and just say, I just need you to stay with me for just a minute and just let me hold you and show you how much I love you. Because here's what's going to happen. When you're hugging somebody, okay, literally your body is talking to the other person's body. And your heart rate is communicating to their heart rate. And your respiration is communicating to their respiration. And your muscle tone is communicating to theirs. And your body temperature is communicating with theirs. Your bodies are talking to each other. And the calm person is helping the more anxious person's body reset itself. You've experienced this in hugs, for example, yourself, where you're holding on to somebody and you're feeling really tense, and all of a sudden you go, you just exhale, right? That's a sign that your bodies are starting to sync up, and that the person who is stressed is listening to your body and calming it down. Once she's in that calmer physical place, then you can start saying, now, honey, tell me about other times when you've done a good job with this. Help me remember some times when you handled something really well. And get her to tell you the good things about her. Get her to tell you about past successes and past times when she maybe was anxious at first, but did a really good job after. Walk her through the process of reconnecting her limbic system to her cortex so that her brain can talk to herself in a more supportive, more loving way. Once you've gotten her reconnected by bringing her into you and really helping her get back online through your body communicating with her body. But the more you kind of talk at her from a distance and say all the right things to her, the more she, in her mind, thinks you don't really get it, because her limbic system and her cortex aren't hooked up enough to be able to really hear what you're trying to say at that point.
Martha, what do you make of all that?
I think it's amazing.
I do too.
Because I'm going to try that.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Is that in a book? Because
it's in Unworried.
Yeah, because I got to get that
Life
book.
Without Anxiety. Yeah.
No, I really.
It's going to take a couple of times for you to do that, Martha. Like she's going to fight it a little bit at first. You know, she maybe be a little wiggly or squirmy. Just say, I just need you to stay with me and just breathe with me. Just let's help each other calm down a little bit. You know, and just let her sit with it, and then do this over the course of a couple of weeks. You're going to see a different kid on your hands.
I'm going to tell my mom to do that with me too. I mean, she's.
We all need that.
Yeah.
Right? We all need a mommy very badly.
I'm 54, but she'll still do it. I know she will. 888-318-7884, our number. If you've got a question about anxiety for Dr. Greg Popcak, we welcome it. He handles these things from the perspective both of a well-prepared Catholic counselor, pastoral counselor, and as a psychotherapist. And you can find out all about that at CatholicCounselors.com. The book, again, Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. We go now to Joyce in Albuquerque, New Mexico, listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 130. Joyce, your question for Dr. Popcak.
Yes, Dr. Popcak. My question is, I have a family member who has been seeing a counselor for about a year and a half, and it was for an impulsive disorder related problem, and they have identified anxiety as being one of the biggest problems. And so, but it's the kind of counseling or therapy is called ACT, A-C-T, but the recently for anxiety they have been using a workbook which incorporates mindfulness for anxiety. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that, because I know, that's an alternative kind of, it's just not good. I know that, but but he's had really good success with managing his anxiety.
So what's your question?
So my question is, what do you think about that kind of therapy, mindfulness?
Yeah, well, ACT, is acceptance and commitment therapy. That's what ACT stands for. And basically the idea of ACT is that I can have a feeling but not have to act on that feeling, right? I can learn to sort of say, wow, I'm really feeling anxious right now, but sort of from a disconnected position where I'm observing myself saying, yeah, but do I really want to act on that anxiety? Is my anxiety pointing to something that's really dangerous that I should avoid? Or is my anxiety maybe coming from something else? The fact that I didn't have a good night's sleep, or that, I'm over worried about something that I really don't have any control over. It teaches the person to sort of step back from their feelings and really consider, what they need to do next so that they can choose to act instead of just reacting. That whole process I described, is a very healthy process, and people who have emotional resilience, people who are emotionally healthy, tend to do that kind of naturally. Now, the word mindfulness is really loaded with a lot of baggage because most of the research on mindfulness and a lot of mindfulness-based therapies come from an Eastern or Buddhist tradition now. But the term, so as much as I don't like to use the term mindfulness, there are other words we can use that describe that process of being able to step back from our emotions, whether you want to call it receptivity, like the Theology of the Body does, or response flexibility, as some neuroscientists call it. That basic skill of being able to step back from my feelings and choose to act instead of just react is a basic function of being a human person that allows us to exercise free will. Without that ability to step back from our feelings, we just have to do whatever our feelings tell us to do, and there's no free will. But if I can learn, practically speaking, obviously there's free will, but I can't benefit from it if I just am a slave to my emotions, right? I'm not free, as St. Paul says. So what I have to do is I have to learn to take that breath that allows me to step back from those emotions and then choose to act rather than react. So that's the process of ACT. I would discourage anybody from taking advantage of mindfulness-based approaches that are drawn from Eastern philosophies or Buddhist spirituality. But there are healthy ways to respond and develop this response flexibility or receptivity that allows us to choose to act as opposed to just react to our emotions. And so there can be a healthy way to approach ACT.
Joyce from Albuquerque, I hope that was helpful. I thank you for the call. I'm moving quickly now because I'm realizing there's lots of folks who want to talk to Dr. Popcak. Jessica in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio 102.7 FM. You're next. Your question for for Dr. Greg Popcak.
I got a promotion there.
Well, you are also a father.
Well, yeah, of one kind, yes.
Yeah.
Well, hi, Dr. Popcak. Thank you for taking my call. I was actually calling for myself. I have been struggling with anxiety for the last 6 years. Mine manifested. I've always been a kind of a tightly wound person, but it manifested itself after getting sick and going through a lot of infertility that ended up resulting in a hysterectomy. And that was kind of just the tipping point that sent me into the ER with panic attacks and led me down a road that I can instantly go into the fight or flight response with the littlest things. And so it took about a year for the doctors to figure out medicine. They put me on Zoloft, and that worked fairly well. But I've always been worried about the long-term side effects of being on that. I'd also we were living down in Greenville, South Carolina at the time, and I went through CBT therapy with a wonderful Southern Baptist Christian man who was very helpful, and unfortunately I have gotten away from practicing some of that CBT and now find myself struggling again. And so my question is twofold. One is being on these medications long term, what are the risks for that? And two, if I'm going to get off of these permanently and go through the CBT, do you have books that you recommend, or do I need to go through a therapist to be able to work through this? And then I heard you talking about Ignatian spirituality. So how do I incorporate all of this? I really don't want to be on meds and have that crutch in my life. And I'd love
all
to
right,
be free.
let's let Dr. Popcak address that.
Yeah, well, look, for anybody who's taking medication, I don't want you to feel guilty about it or see it as a crutch. Again, Sai was pointing out, as Catholics, we recognize that God has given us many, many gifts that we can use to help us become what He created us to be. And medication is one of those things. We synthesize it, but it's made out of all of the stuff that God made first, right? So there's nothing wrong with it. Now, I can understand, though, why you'd want to get off the medication. Long-term antidepressants don't have a ton of negative side effects, but they can cause problems, even in terms of our intimate relationship with our spouse. They can cause problems in terms of sleep issues or some other issues with weight and those kinds of things like that. So they're not perfect solutions. solutions, right? So I'm going to ask you to not make any changes without talking to your doctor about that, first of all. But if you do want to come off the medication long term, yeah, I mean, I would start to re-engage some of the notes that you got from your previous CBT therapist if you say that that was working well. If you kept a notebook at all from your therapy, go back to that, start working through some of those things. We talk a lot about these kinds of exercises in the book, Unworried. I try to cover a lot of bases in there. And if you want to try to just do some self-help, you can start with that. And I do give some additional resources in there, other books that can be very, very helpful. Depending on whether your anxiety is more rooted in the physical aspect of your experience, the emotional, the spiritual, or the relational, because all those different areas of life can contribute to anxiety, and I give different exercises in each of those sections for how we can begin to alleviate the stressors that contribute to anxiety from those different dimensions of our experience. So maybe, start working through that, see how you're doing, combining that with some of the work that you did previously with your therapist. And then if you find that you're still needing a little more support, then either reach back out to the person you were working with before or give us a call at the Pastoral Solutions Institute. We'll hook you up. But yeah, I mean, the reality is, depending on the degree of anxiety that you're experiencing, you can do a lot through self-help. There's actually been some good research that shows that book therapy, bibliotherapy, self-help is really effective for treating mild to moderate anxiety. But if you find that it's still persistent after you're doing those exercises, there's nothing wrong with reaching out for that therapist and saying, hey, I need a booster shot.
Jessica, thank you so much for the call. We got to go to a quick break. Before we do, we're kicking off our annual fall store-wide sale today, and it's a great way to save money on all of the great resources you hear about here at Catholic Answers. Just enter the promo code CALIVE18 at checkout when you visit shop.catholic.com to save 20% off almost everything in our online store. 20% off. Just put in CALIVE18 at shop.catholic.com today and start your savings.
You're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
A lot of people think that street evangelization involves yelling out of a bullhorn telling people that they're going to hell. Not so with St. Paul's Street Evangelization. Our methods are non-confrontational and effective. We simply offer information on the Catholic faith along with rosaries, miraculous medals, and prayer. Pope Francis wrote about how beautiful it is to see street preachers joyfully bringing Jesus to every corner of the earth. Street evangelization is fun and fruitful. Join us today at streetevangelization.com.
EWTN, teaching the truth.
I love listening to Catholic radio. It's perfect. It provides peace and it builds us up and strengthens us. We listen to it whenever we're in the car. My husband and I love it. He got me started with it before he even became a Catholic. He owns his own business, and so he's working by himself, and he listens to Catholic radio, and he's called in several times too. It's using the technology that we have for good.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
CatholicCounselors.com is the web address where Dr. Greg Popcak can be located. Pastoral Solutions Institute is the organization he founded, and he continues as director there. They provide Catholic telecounseling to provide faithful solutions to tough marriage, family, and personal problems. His newest book, Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety, which I have to say, every time I say it, makes me feel a little bit better. Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. And that is what we are discussing today. Up next is an anonymous caller listening on the EWTN app. Anonymous caller, your question for Dr. Greg Popcak.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I believe I trust God more and more each day. But my husband has all the characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder, and so I never know one day to the next if something's going to set him off, and then it's like the anxiety is contagious, and I just feel like I have to get away from him. Is there something in your book or that would address that specifically, or do you have a suggestion for me?
Sure. There are lots of things. Can I ask what kind of help you're getting? Are you getting any kind of help at all so far?
Me personally, or?
Yeah, you personally.
Actually, I've had a lot of counseling.
Okay.
And the last counseling session I had did not go well. Well, a lot of them didn't go well. The last one was really bad. My anxiety went through the roof.
All right. Well, I don't. Obviously, we don't have time to get into the whole history there. But what I would suggest to you, and we talk about this in the book, that in the section on how relationships can contribute to our anxiety, we talk a lot about how living around with people who make us feel crazy really does contribute significantly to anxiety. And how do we begin to untangle that? Because anxiety, believe it or not, is actually a sign, from our bodies that says things are not working right. Okay? And in a sense, it's a helpful thing, right? It's supposed to say you're not functioning at your best. There are threats here that need to be addressed. And you really are. You're living with a person who has you think, a narcissistic personality disorder, who really only thinks about themselves, and tends to be kind of impulsive that way, and not really regard you as a person. If that's what they have, then this is the way it's going to play out in your relationship, where you're just kind of discounted, and what they want goes, and their feelings are the only ones that matter. That's very painful and difficult to live with somebody like that, because you don't get to even have needs, much less express those needs or get those needs met. And when that happens, that increases your anxiety, because that's all saying you're not functioning well, your needs aren't being met, things are falling apart. And that's what the anxiety is saying. It's saying, I need you to do something about this, right? So a good approach to therapy for you is learning how to set appropriate boundaries with your husband, not to drive him away or leave him, but to be able to say, okay, here is treatment that I can accept from you because it's loving and appropriate and respectful. Here are things I can't accept from you because they're not. And being very consistent inside yourself with that. Now, he won't like that. That'll get him upset. And as long as you keep trying to keep the lid on his crazy, then it's going to make you feel crazy too, because people with personality disorders especially are really good at making everybody around them feel crazy. In fact, one of the ways you're kind of dealing with a personality disorder if you're a therapist is at the end of the session you're wondering which end is up, and you're supposed to be the one who's helping people orient themselves to reality. They're very good at what they do. So you have to be really good at setting those boundaries and being very clear about what do you have a right to be treated appropriately? What do you have a right to expect from a healthy relationship, and holding him to that? That's where therapy is going to come in helpful, to give you that reality check to say, are you just trying to live your day-to-day life, making him keep a lid on his crazy by you tiptoeing around and keeping your head down? Or are you setting appropriate boundaries that, yes, might be aggravating him, but enabling you to also insulate yourself from that abusive narcissistic treatment that would allow you to begin to feel like you're taking care of yourself and getting some of those needs met so that the anxiety can decrease?
Okay. Have you ever written a book specifically in dealing with situations like this?
Specifically on that topic, no. But we talk about this. We can talk about this kind of situation in the relationship chapters in Unworried, and I think that you'll begin to get some good help there too.
Okay, Anonymous.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the call. Moving now to Rick in Oceanside here in California. I believe it's there's an Oceanside in New Jersey too. That could be it. I don't know. Rick watches on YouTube, so I don't know where he is. Rick, are you here in California or New Jersey?
I'm here in California.
All right. Your question for Dr. Greg. I don't know why I needed to know that, except that I live in Oceanside here in California. That's probably the only reason. But your question for Dr. Popcak.
It was making you anxious.
It was making me very anxious. You're correct.
Well, thank you for taking my call. It's the first time I've called in. I have a family member that suffers from anxiety and takes medication for it. A very highly functioning person. And I think the anxiety may have its roots in past drug use many years ago, and I'm wondering if there's ever hope for him to eventually stop having to use that.
I mean, again, psychotherapy is physical therapy for the brain. So anytime we are experiencing anxiety, it means that there is something physically wrong, okay? The question is how serious is that physical abnormality? How much have those fear circuits been fried by our past experience, so that can they be helped? So it's the same kind of thing with physical therapy, right? If you get, if you are injured and you go to the physical therapist and it's a mild to moderate injury, there's pretty good chance you're going to get a full recovery. If you got run over by a car and you have every bone broken in your body, physical therapy can get you back up and functioning again, but you're probably still going to hurt. So the question is, how how bad have those systems been fried by his previous drug use to know. So it's impossible to know how far he can get with that. But the good news is, if you're doing those exercises, you can reach sort of maximum therapeutic potential, and you can get a better sense of how far you can go with that. So I would really encourage anybody who's on medication for anxiety. The research really shows that the more you do cognitive behavioral therapy exercises that help you rewire your brain and help heal those fear circuits in your brain, the more you're able to see how far you can get. As opposed to if you just kind of suffer along and try to take medication to take the edge off of it.
Okay, Rick?
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Rick. I'm going to keep moving because I want to get to as many folks as we can. Samantha in Tampa, Florida, listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 130. You are up next. Samantha, your question for did it twice, Dr. Greg Popcak.
I have a question with regards to infidelity. If I know the person that I'm with has been unfaithful to me, I keep reading, the lives of St. Rita and St. Monica and how their prayers and the way that they prayed for their husbands made their husbands convert later on in life. And I keep praying for him and wanting the conversion, but I'm basically swimming through being angry at the same time that this is happening to me and my kids. So I don't know whether to, cut lines or keep praying.
Dr. Popcak?
Well, you have more options than just do I stay or do I go, right? Where you really need to be going with this is a little bit like what I was talking about with the previous caller here about learning how to set appropriate boundaries. See, because one of the things that happens with infidelity that a lot of people don't appreciate is that lots of people have marital problems, but they don't all cheat. So what makes the difference there between somebody who's not happy in the relationship and works through it or handles it in other ways versus somebody who's maybe not happy and they cheat? Well, what it turns out is the person who commits infidelity very often is struggling with an undiagnosed depression. They're not very good at expressing their needs. They're not very good at dealing with conflict. They're not very good at kind of managing stress, so they stuff it all. They don't talk about it, and then they get depressed, right? Because all those needs are being unmet, and they're getting all piled up. And then they meet somebody at the gym or at church or at work that makes them laugh, that makes them feel good about themselves, and then they start using that person as a medication for the depression that they've experienced. So your job as the person who's been being cheated on or been cheated on is to really learn to set appropriate boundaries with your husband that insist that he deal with his stuff, instead of kind of just saying, well, what did I do wrong to make this happen, or what do I have to put up with? It's about learning what you have a right to expect from your relationship and starting to insist that the relationship look more like that. He's not going to want to change on his own because right now everything's working for him as far as he's concerned, right? He's literally having his cake and eating it too. But the good news for you is that there are a lot of things that you can learn to do to begin to make changes in this relationship and use that grace you're getting from all of that prayer to begin to set appropriate limits and boundaries with your husband so that it encourages healthy relations between you and him and discourages the unhealthy stuff that he's trying to do. You might not be able to save the relationship all on your own. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that research really shows there's a ton you can do, even if one spouse is only working on the relationship, even if their spouse is being unfaithful. You can really pull this back together in a lot of ways. A good marriage-friendly therapist can help you. You can learn more at marriagefriendlytherapists.com. All of our therapists are marriage-friendly therapists at catholiccounselors.com. There's a good book by Donald Bauckham. It's not a Christian book, but it's an excellent research-based book on infidelity called Getting Past the Affair. I recommend checking that out as well.
Okay, Samantha?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate the call. Our guest is Dr. Greg Popcak. The book is Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. And if you like what you hear from Dr. Popcak, you can hear him every morning on the EWTN Radio Network. More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak airs 10 a.m. Eastern each and every weekday morning across the country. Dr. Popcak, it's we started by saying it's an epidemic. And it sounds to me from what I've heard that we start to address that epidemic by, first of all, knowing that God loves us and doesn't want us to suffer with this anxiety, and then learning the techniques and living the kind of life that brings that anxiety down.
That's right. The more we can feel connected to God and the people around us, the more we can feel connected to our own resources and begin to say how I can respond to my situation rather than react to it, the more I can overcome the anxiety that I'm experiencing.
It sounds like you're saying that love God and love your neighbor thing, it's good for us too. It's not just not just commandments.
Yeah, there's no question about that. All of God's commandments ultimately benefit us and help us to live healthy, holy, fulfilling lives.
Again, Dr. Greg Popcak, the book is Unworried, A Life Without Anxiety. Thank you for a very fine hour.
Thank you, Si.
Tomorrow, 2 hours of open forum with Tim Staples. Any question you got on the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church is welcome, and I'll bet you Tim's got an answer. See you then, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.